So we'll go ahead and get this show started. The legendary Rick Brown. Let's go.
On Facebook.
I liked it on Facebook.
Follow us on Twitter. INSiiGHTS.
Yeah.
2 I's in the middle. INSiiGHTS.
All right, y'all.
The people that are there for you on your darkest nights are the ones worth spending your brightest days with.
All right, y'all.
All right, y'all. But I thought I'd throw something in there for you. People who you spend. Hey, I saw you kind of get quiet there when that one came out on you there.
I was wondering where.
You say you wanted to know if that was the right show or not, huh?
I was wondering what was really happening here. What's really happening? I'm sorry. Welcome to the Mick and Rick Show. This is your reporters. No, this is your reporter, Rick Brown. I'm not playing today. This is over there. Over there is the man, the legend, not a myth. He is a legend in his own right, definitely. Coach Mickey Clayton. Take over, sir.
He came out throwing those jabs real quick before I could get mine in today. Yeah. Rick, he learns real quick, y'all. He learns real quick, y'all. Boy, we're happy to be here with you today as we transition from Black History Month to Women's History Month. And we really have some interesting things going on, some interesting guests that we're going to bring to you. And I think that you're going to enjoy what they have to say. In addition, we always kind of do a quick recap of our last show. And we had quite a few comments, Rick. One comment said, nice to see you picking up young females as legends. Then somebody else said, in the 60s and 70s, quarterbacks had to be blonde and blue eyes. That's what the white owners at the time felt made more proficient quarterbacks. They said, if my memory serves me correctly, I think a Philadelphia professor wrote a book on why blonde and blue-eyed quarterbacks, blue eyes make better quarterbacks. Say, there's someone else. If I'm not mistaken, Cleveland was among the first to promote blacks in prominent sports roles. Wasn't Frank Robinson the first black manager of the Indians? True. And for people who are anti-Boston Celtics, I tell you all the time, they were one of the first to start 5 black basketball players. My dad was always a diehard Celtic fan. He said, man, y'all too young. Y'all don't understand basketball history. You need to learn your history. So you pulling for the Lakers. And said, you got black people pulling for the Lakers and white people pulling for the Celtics. And the Celtics had the first NBA team to start 5 black athletes.
Yeah, Coach, I didn't know. I didn't know that. I didn't know they were the first team to draft a black person into the NBA. And they had the first black coach. I mean, and then to turn 20 years later, it was like, did that really happen? I mean, I didn't know. I was on the Laker bandwagon, so feeding into this white and black.
Yeah, you on the same bandwagon I was on. That's where I was. But that's that history, that. And my dad was a history teacher, and that he would always say, "You need to know your history, son." Hey, Sports Diva, we see you with the shout out.
Hey, Diva.
Between you and Dr. Miller, We can count on y'all. But AA Sports Dealer, we got you. So, then somebody asked him, have you ever thought about Woody Strode as a legend? So
I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna have to do some research. Woody Strode.
Strode, Srode. And then somebody else asked me, y'all talk about the dunk contest. They said, what's better, the dunks that you see in the game or the dunks in the dunk contest?
Oh, the games, most definitely. Shoot. Oh my goodness. Like the one JJ had over AD last night. Memphis, Jerry Jackson dunking over Anthony Davis. Whoo, if you didn't see it. Whoo! Whoo!
They say, ooh, if you didn't see it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
This is what I love. Our people always send us something. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. If we can get it to go.
OMG. Someone's about to get posterized. Don't look over him so you can get the text.
Yeah, hit with a body still part of me too. They say, which one was the best? And those look like, when they sent it to me, those look like high school dunks.
Yeah.
But the one when your guy bodied him and he still caught him with two hands. That was pretty good there.
That was pretty special. And the last one was more like a dunk contest.
Right. Sports Diva says like being in the playground, huh?
Everybody would have been running on the court. Ah!
She said number 3 was the best dunk. She said number 3. That was the one
Yeah,
with the guy
that was the body.
up.
That was the body.
Them, And then
Do you know who's the senior vice?
Not to be outdone. Oh man, not to be outdone. I had so many of them up here to try to show today, and it looks like I kind of missed that one, but they had
The people that are there for you on your darkest nights are the ones worth spending your brightest days with.
So we've seen that one already. That's what happens when you do everything. You don't have a producer that you can have. Say, we need to have that one up. You don't have a producer. That would be me.
Check.
Instead, cross-court pass. Murray with an open lane. Oh, put it on a poster.
That is a poster, no question. And there was no question that he was going to go over the top and take somebody's head off.
Instead, cross-court pass. Murray with an open lane. Oh, put it on a poster.
That is a poster, no question. And there was no question that he was going to go over the top and take somebody's head off.
You see the guy walking in and the head coach with his hands over his head like, ooh. Oh, man.
Oh, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Thank y'all for sending us the stuff. We appreciate that. That makes the show. We appreciate y'all sending that information to us.
And thank you for having something positive on Georgetown. Jeez. I need it. Man, when I first saw the arena, I was like, uh-oh, here we go. So thank you.
Say you appreciate that, huh?
Oh, my goodness. Yes, indeed, because Brother Pat Ewing, his Hoyas haven't been mighty lately.
They hadn't been mighty lately. You're right about that. But you know, we go real early because of who we have as a special guest. We're gonna show you who we have in Remembering the Legends.
Out of Los Angeles Sparks in the WNBA. Do you know who led the nation in steals 3 years in a row when she was a collegiate basketball player? Do you know who holds the NC Division I record as the all-time steals leader and is second all-time in the school record book with assists? She was also the MEAC Player of the Year in 1995. All MEAC first team honors, 93, 94, 95. Four-time Black College All-American recipient. FAMU Hall of Fame inductee in 2001. Do you know? I'm speaking about Pocketbook. Do you know who Pocketbook is? It's Natalie White. Natalie White's career as a student athlete was outstanding. Could D you up, handle the ball. Had this little look in her eye sometime when she would get pissed off when it was money time. Because money time was Natalie time. She went to work for Nike. She now, with Nike, she earned numerous awards and recognition, including the company's prestigious Econ of the Year in 2005. It's the highest achievement recognized for exuding Nike's principles and their brand. She's now the senior vice president of the LA Sparks. In that role, she has led corporate core business operations, overseeing ticket sales, sponsorship, PR, marketing, game operations, community relations, and youth sports. But of all of those things, the thing that really gets her going is her Action Foundation. She's very active at home in Fort Valley, building a gym, raising money on her own through her foundation to be able to do it, to give back, to be able to assist the students in the community that she came from is very important to her. They launched a Fort Valley Now campaign. The purpose of that is to support the renovation and conversion of the old Hunt Primary School gym in Fort Valley, Georgia, to the Action Founding Center. Natalie White, founder of Natalie White Basketball. Her Action Foundation, the target focus is families of low middle income, single-parent homes, at-risk youth. She identifies the students elementary through high school. Girls between the ages of 6 and 12 participate in sports regularly. 40% of teenage girls are not actively participating in sport. Boys get $1.13 million more sports, $1.13 million more sports opportunities than girls. She's serious about it. Again, remembering the legends, remembers, honors, recognizes Natalie White. We also thank her for appearing earlier on the Insight Show. Natalie White always gives back. Always been successful. Just want you to remember the legends and Natalie White.
and you see that last person that's on there on Remembering the Legends, she knows every one of those people who clicked on that screen because she was here with them. It's hard to talk about all the accolades. It's even harder to remember all her names. We got Sarah, EJ, Hill-Yates. She got like 27 names and 15,000 accomplishments. We want to welcome to the show the legendary, the first female athletic director at Florida A&M University. Welcome, Sarah Hill-Yates.
Thank you, Mickey.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, guys.
Look, well, we honored. Rick, you don't know how hard it is to get on screen.
Really?
Oh yeah. She tries to be humble. It's hard to be humble when you've done all the things that she's done. Sarah, welcome during History Month, Women's History Month. We could have had you on Black History, could have had you on Women's History, could have had you on FAMU History. We just could have you on a whole bunch of stuff. We're just glad to have you on now.
Thank you, brother. My brother from another mother.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Uh-oh. Y'all got some history here, huh? Let's see what's going on here.
Well, ask the question then, Rick.
Okay. So, did you hire Mickey for the women's basketball team?
Oh, Lord, he went straight to it.
Mickey was the first staff person for basketball in FAMU women's athletic history ever. He was the first women's basketball coach to be hired at FAMU and get paid.
Get paid. Why?
And the pay was not very good.
At least she honest.
Why Mickey Clayton though?
Mickey was a classmate of mine. He was behind me, and he played basketball. During the time we were in school, we became friends. And just ironically, we were freshman staff members at Florida A&M University the same year. We were new. The president was new. And we were kind of like, well, Mickey was closer to the president, but he helped me to navigate that side of athletics and university. But I ran into him one day, and I don't even know if he knew I'd been hired. I didn't know he had been hired with Upward Bound. And we just clicked. And I was responsible for putting together the program. And I was like, oh, he just fell in my lap. Mickey, you want to coach the women's basketball team? And straight out his mouth, yeah. And the rest is history.
Indeed.
That's how it happened.
That's how it happened. At the book. Boy, look at the news. Look at the reporter in here trying to figure out if he's gonna delve more into it.
No, because I want to know more about Miss Hill and why was this? You've done so much for the university and for women's sports. Would I be wrong to call you the mother of women athletics at FAMU?
Rick, I'm standing on the shoulders of professors and people who came before me, and I always like to give credit to whom credit is due. And those people worked so hard years before me and Mickey, trying to give girls the opportunity to play. It just didn't happen. It wasn't their time, but they never stopped. They coached through physical education. They taught us the rules, the regulations, how you coach, how you administer. And we took all of that in. And there are a lot of us. I was just lucky enough to be that little pest from those staff members that stayed on them, stayed up there, volunteered my time, showed my dedication of what I wanted to see the program be like, because as a student, we didn't have that. And I think that is what inspired the professors. I was dedicated. I didn't care about being paid. I just did the work. And the choice to hire a women's athletic director came to me. Coordinator of women's athletics is what the title was during that time. And I was fortunate.
Humble, coach. You said that. You said that, coach. Humble.
I told you. Coming in during a time with Title IX, which we did do a story with you and Barbara Palmer with 50 years of Title IX and revisiting the history, and the two of you really spent some time, and we'll have the link posted down below so people can go back and see it again, where you talked and shared a lot about Title IX and some of the trials and tribulations that you had, along with the successes that you had. But it was during a time when people weren't really supportive of women's sports because they were afraid the money was going to come from the men's sports, and they thought that they would be shortchanged some type of way. But you jumped right in and fought for the women's athletics programs and the student athletes, not only at our institution, but statewide.
I did. And I stepped on a few toes, but coming in, those that hired me know that I didn't mind stepping on toes to get what we needed to get. And they hired me for that reason. Someone who would feel, I guess, dedicated enough, strong enough, didn't mind to stand their ground to get what they were hiring me to do. And I enjoyed it. One of my stark challengers was Jake Gaither. And he was one of my professors in graduate school prior to me getting the job. And we had to make him a believer. There were a lot of staff members, mostly men, that we had to make believers out of to make sure that they understood that women had that opportunity. Coach Hansel Tooks was my neighborhood coach on the streets, in front of his house, in front of my aunt's house while I was in college. And he kind of like brought me through my freshman year all the way through. And he was the one that gave me the nod and hired me, along with Dr. Bartley, to actually do the program. Dr. Bartley and Coach Tooks lived across the street from each other. My aunt lived one street up, and I stayed with my aunt the entire time I was in school. So they knew a lot about me, but at the same time, they allowed me to tag along, follow them along as a student, then in graduate school. And when the opportunity hit, I graduated with my master's in 75. And he told me, he said, go home, get some experience, work at the high school. And then if we hire, I'm going to give you a call. Well, he was true to his word. He and Dr. Bartley led the committee, the search committee, to hire, the first women's athletic director. And like I said, I got the nod. I was in Milton High School in Milton, Florida, coaching the first girls track team, the first girls basketball team, and the first cheerleading squad for ninth graders, just the 2 years. They called me 2 weeks before I was starting my second year, and I left Milton High School and came to FAMU in 1977 in August.
As the general consensus, even Sports Diva says, very in capital, very humble. That's how she is and who she is. So that comes as no surprise to any of us. But one of the things, it was a different time then, but now, what advice would you give to young ladies who are interested in trying to follow in your footsteps or to become administrators in athletics? What advice would you give these young ladies?
I think for the most part, whatever they're doing and whatever they choose to do from the day that they step on the campus, it didn't start on that first day on campus. It started back in their communities. It started with their parents. It started with their families and whatever they were doing as young student athletes in the community. And becoming a good athlete today is totally different from what the opportunities were back in the 70s when I came through. And so today, I would suggest to those girls, follow your dream, follow your heart, never give up. Don't let anybody deter you. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do whatever it is you want to do. I would love to see more women involved in the administrative side. I'm just thrilled at the fact that Tiffany Dawn Sykes has been hired in this time to head the women's program. I mean, I've talked to her a few times. I am very impressed with her knowledge, her experience, her dedication, and her ability to be able to reach out to the entire spectrum of what she's going to be required to do. And she shared a conversation with me of what she decided she wanted to do years before she got to where she is now. When you want to get into athletics or any career, it doesn't start with just a degree. It doesn't start with whatever you're doing currently. It starts as an interest years before. So you have to build on that, stay dedicated to that. And if that's what you want to do, then you fight for it. You go for it, and you make it yours.
Well, one thing, Tiffany Dawn Sykes is not women's athletics, but over the entire athletic department. And Sports Diva again said it really did take a village to get FAMU women's athletics off the ground, and that's very true. And to keep it afloat even now. But one of the things I want you to address is a little bit about the mentality it takes for somebody to be in that position, both men and women, because of the inordinate amount of pressure that comes from different sides to do that job and to try to do it the right way, and to have so many people trying to put their hands on that steering wheel and drive it in the direction they want to go. Talk a little bit about the mentality and mental fortitude it takes for somebody, male and female, to be able to handle that position.
You know, and you know, Mickey, it's interesting that you asked that from the standpoint that different, and this is just my own personal observation, different eras has yielded different, and you know, for lack of a better word, how hard you have to fight for what it is you want. And because people change over the years. I went from being a student in 1970 when girls could only do intramurals or play in the PE classes. And the men, you know, didn't even teach those classes. The women taught those classes. The women physical education teachers taught those classes, because those classes in many cases were not co-ed. Right in the middle of my years in school, they became co-ed around my sophomore year in 72. When I started in 70, it was girls and boys. The boys were taught by the guys and the girls were taught by the women. Wow. But when you fast forward, the attitudes carried with that. The men ran everything. The women were on the sidelines, but we were steady fighting all the time behind the curtain, behind the trenches. The Dr. Bartleys, the Miss Smith, Ma Lewis, Miss Barber, Miss Martin, all of those women teachers, I mean, they were fighting for us, and they were volunteering their time. They volunteered their time. They had to fight the men on the program that felt, like you said, that if they gave time to the women, then it was going to take money from the men. And the women had to fight, I mean, wash cars, raise money, whatever we needed to do in order to try to fund just to wear a uniform. It was a constant fight. It was a fight all the way through, even when I got there in 1977. In 1977, even though they hired me under the physical education umbrella, I had a full load of classes, and all of the staff did. Men and women had a full load of teaching physical education classes, and they got just a little tiny stipend for coaching. Okay. And it was like that with Jake when he was coaching football. He was physical education first, athletics second. And so the attitudes last longer on that same subject for women than it did for men. You could see the improvement in the men's program as years continued to progress. But in the women's program, it was really a force with Title IX, which had to force them to give us that opportunity. I don't know what would have happened if Title IX hadn't been passed. I mean, I don't know if it ever would have caught on, but keep in mind, Title IX passed in 1972. I didn't come aboard till 5 years later. And I came aboard 5 years later because the federal government was going to penalize universities that had not adhered to the Title IX guidelines. So I came in 5 years later with no budget, not $0. Mickey, that's why you didn't get paid. and Mickey was getting paid from Upward Bound. I was getting paid from physical education. And we basically was doing a job for athletics that we didn't get, we didn't get paid for. But we did something we loved and we stayed with it. The program that you did with me and Barbara Palmer, Barbara was over at Florida State and had a program in 1968. They started their program in 1968. University of Florida started their program in 1966 for women's sports. That's when it started. And keep in mind, Florida State was a women's college back in the 20s, and it turned into a co-ed college, and the women, it was almost like they disappeared. And then it had to get picked up again in 1968. So think about that. A women's college in 1920. And then in 1968, they hired the first women's athletic director, which was Barbara Palmer. FAMU, 1887, and they hired the first women's athletic director in 1977. So women had to fight. We're continuing to fight, and that happens, and that's a part of the game. You have to continue. But the mindset that we have to endure and go through, it can make you or it can break you. And you have to decide on what fight you want to put forth. Sometimes people last for 30 years, just like our softball coach, Veronica Wiggins, and some of us leave a year, 2 years, or somewhere in between. It depends on what your conviction is, what you're trying to do. And keep in mind, as administrations change, attitudes change. As new people come in, then things that you've built and things that you think will last, all of a sudden disappears with the person at the head comes in and wants to destroy or give you a back seat. That happened to me. But at the same time, I knew where they were coming from. But at the same time, I had to decide for myself what I wanted to do. I started the program. I got a building. We raised funds to be able to get that building, full scholarships. Every program was doing well. We went from Division I to Division II. From Division II to Division I. We fought. And Mickey, you attested this because you were my history. We did it together. When you knew the frustration I had sometimes. Rick with Mickey on the road and trying to get him on the road to even recruit outstanding basketball players. It was a fight every single time he went on the road. Just to get a car, just to buy gas, just to pay for food. It was a fight every day, every single day. The state funding that we received in 1981 lifted all of that, and it was like a breath of fresh air. Mm-hmm. First thing I did, hired Mickey full-time, pulled him away from Upward Bound. Hired myself, Francis, who was already there, Francis Knight, who was our first full-time staff member, even before Mickey, coached tennis and volleyball. She was the only full-time women's hired coach on the staff for the first, let me see, the first 2 years, the first 3 years. And she was doing both jobs. She was doing volleyball and she was doing tennis, but at the same time, it was a struggle just trying to get her paid. She graduated from college in 78, 79, and she was getting ready to head back to Bradenton, Florida. She was so good. She played on the men's team, and I needed to keep her because I didn't have anybody else that could do what she could do for tennis. And so we were able to keep people like her. So grabbing Francis off the campus, grabbing Mickey off the campus. I was coaching the track team. So right there were 5 sports and we needed 8. We got volunteers and we got people from the community to cover softball. I remember Joe Tolliver. I remember Smith. Coaches that loved the sport and just volunteered to come and coach the softball team. We had George Ellis, who volunteered to coach the swim team. And eventually 2 years after Francis, well, maybe two or 3 years after Francis, I hired Lois Boyd to do softball. So we needed the same number of sports that the men had in order for the university athletic program to be able to qualify for Division II or Division I. They couldn't do it by themselves. So eventually they started giving us a little money just before we got the state funding. But you have to have a mindset that you really and truly want to stick it out, build something, and make sure that you can look back and say, you know, I did the best I could with what I had.
That's a heck of an answer, isn't it, Rick?
Wow. Wow.
It's so many layers to what she said. And, you know, and a lot of it I didn't know because I was so busy handling the battles that I had to have. And I would try to get to Sarah. She would be in financial aid for hours trying to help the students get all the information in, make sure they help walk it through. I thought she worked for financial aid. Then she was so good doing it that the athletic department came to her with all of that other stuff. So she ended up not just doing the women athletes, she did all the athletes, trying to help the athletic department out because of the connections that she had developed. And being a rattler, it helped because our recruiting, it helped us be able to, man, I stayed at boosters. I stayed with alumni. I slept on sofas. I slept in spare rooms. I had a little Mazda RX-7. My daughter said, you put your hand out and scoop the grass, sprick the trash up going by. It sat so low. They give me a tank of gas. And man, it was for love of the school. You know, you work like that because it's your institution. It educated me and my wife. It educated my mom, my dad, my grandmother. It changed our income tax bracket growing up. So it was your way of paying back. But as you see, it was a lot to it. And you're hearing it from the lady I would go to, and she would handle it. Once I would go to it, she'd say, what? Wait a minute. We get ready to get that straight. And off she would go. And I would have to deal with whatever issues I had. I tried to keep the basketball issues away from her because she had enough things she was doing administratively, you know. And Sports Diva, I'm going to have to censor her now. She said, wow, to have to do all that and keep up with Coach Clayton. Dang, Miss Hill really had her hands full.
Miss Sarah, how much resistance was it back then? And you touched on it a little bit, but how much resistance was it and resentment for you doing what you were doing?
Well, Rick, you know, you don't really know exactly who may resent you, who is for you. One thing it reveals is people who didn't support me you know that they don't, they resent you. Okay. And there were many. Okay. There were very few who supported the women's program, even women. Okay. Even women.
Mentality.
And why that? I don't know. Because we had a group of coaches, and I mean that first staff was amazing, Rick. I mean, I tell you, we used to have our little meetings, and in the mornings, and our staff meetings, and we could let each other know how we felt about things. We can vent and do things that we felt was going to help us to be stronger in whatever we faced every day. And what I was trying to do is trying to make sure that the coaches had what they needed in order to be able to give to the athletes their full attention. Because if they couldn't give the athletes their full attention, then that means the athletes were going to be slighted. And like Mickey, you go into a parent's living room and you convince that parent that Florida A&M University is the place for your child. And Mickey was a star doing that. I mean, he didn't just coach, he didn't just recruit for basketball. That reputation for basketball was phenomenal. And he could tell Francis about a volleyball player or a tennis player or Lois about a softball player. And that's the way our coaching staff would do. If we hear about a person in another sport and that wasn't their sport, they pass it on to the other coach. But the thing is that being able to put all of that together and realize that your goal each day is to try to make sure that those students got what they needed. I used to say all the time, if we had no students, you wouldn't have a job, because we weren't needed. If we didn't have the students, we wouldn't have a job. Mickey and my staff, we pushed for graduation. I used to tell the girls all the time, you came here to get a degree. You got to get a degree. You got to be able to get a job. So we followed them. That was another component of the coaches' jobs. Had to follow them from the classroom. Had to speak to the teachers. Had to go meet with the teachers, meet with the deans. We had to do it all. And then as they were doing what they were doing, I had to do what I could do to pull the whole thing together. I was serving on 5 to 10 committees in the university for different things. I remember the SACS committee. I remember the equity committee, just doing things to make sure that athletics had a voice whenever the university staff as a whole was speaking. So we had a job that encompassed the entire environment, but at the same time trying to make sure we hold ourselves responsible, and also in the light of, so that we can be proud of what we're doing, so that our student athletes can be proud and don't, feel comfortable being led by us. So, we have to watch it, like they say, be careful, somebody's watching you. So we had to carry ourselves in a way that we were respectful at all times. So all of that, the total picture was something that you always had to have a mind for. You had to make sure that you were respectful at all times, but you had to fight. And sometimes you had to fight the very person at the head, at the very top. And now you're worried about your job. I can tell you this because now he's not around. God bless the dead. Walter Smith. And I'm going to tell you this little story. Roosevelt Wilson, who was the athletic director after Coach Took stepped down in 1985. I remember a meeting that Dr. Smith required Roosevelt to bring me to. We were washing cars maybe years before that. And he remembered an incident where he knew that this was like in 1977, 78. And I think that's where he and I may have gotten off on the wrong foot. We were washing cars to raise money to buy some uniforms and shoes. And he passed by and he wasn't going to stop. And my girls got in front of the car because they knew it was the president's car. They have a sign. He wanted to give them $1 because he didn't want them to wash his car. And they went, and all the girls surrounded the car. They went off on him. He gave them $5. He kept going. And then soon after that, I got an interview with one of the news, the Democrat, Tallahassee Democrats. And I didn't even know they were on the campus. They came up to me during this car wash and they asked me point blank, well, what are you doing? What are you doing this for? Why do you have to do this? Do the president support women's athletics? And I said, no. You weren't supposed to say that. Mm-hmm. I said, no, he does not. And I told them about that incident. $5 wouldn't let us wash his car. I got called to the principal's office the next week with Roosevelt, sitting in the office, and Roosevelt and I was on one side of the desk. Dr. Smith was on the other side. And he told me, he said, why did you say that? I said, because it was true. You do.
I knew that's what you were going to say. I do that.
And so Roosevelt kicks me under the table, and I said, why you kick me, Roosevelt? Like that. And so the president said, I can fire you. I said, I know you can. He said, I should fire you. I said, you can fire me. I'll find me another job. I'm young. And that was my response during that time. But that's to show you and to tell you that, when you feel comfortable and you don't worry about being fired and you believe in what you're doing, sometimes you have to put things on the line that you don't want to put on the line. During that time, and keep in mind, I was only like 25, 27 years old. So, at that point, I just felt like, if I can get him to support us, whatever I needed to say, and it was going to be the truth, I wasn't going to give him credit for something he didn't do. But that led to him giving us that very next year. Now, this may seem small. We got about $17,000 out of the athletic program that very next year. We went from 0 to 5,000 to 17,000 before we got the state funding for women's athletics.
We thought we were rich with that. And we thought we were rich then, Sarah.
We were rich. I mean, that money can go. I was like, oh, Mickey can go recruit. Oh, we can go a little bit further. Whoever we were playing, we can play somebody, a little bigger. You remember Andy Landers at the University of Georgia?
Right.
It was like, hey, we can go play the big boys, big girls.
Andy Landers was the only top 10 program that would come to our gym and play us.
That's right.
Rolled
because of you, though. Because of you.
I don't know about that, but those Georgia Bulldogs rolled up in there. I said, Andy, you in shoot around. He said, man, we talking. Come on in. I said, but you get ready to have shoot around before the game. Ain't no secrets to this. Come on in. And man, he ran them so hard in shoot around. I was like, with my mouth open, I said, man, as hard as I work my girls, I don't do them like this.
What was the girl named? Teresa Edwards?
Teresa Edwards, Katrina McClain, Ann Donovan, Tracy Waits. They had girls who played in the Olympics. I mean,
yes,
they were pretty doggone good. And he rolled up in that University of Georgia specialized bus with the sleepers in there and the big chairs and everything. Man, he said, man, the band not going to be here. I wanted to see the band. I said, well, Andy, you're not worried about play. He said, man, if we lose, we just lose. We got to get better. That's why you do. You just play people. He said, I don't care. If we lose, I'll get on them. We get better next game. He play anyway. The rest of them talked that junk. They were trying not to play us.
One of the memories I treasure is being able to serve. I served on Rick. I served on 4 NCAA Division I committees. And on the eligibility committee, when the guidelines came down for recruitment and for eligibility to play and the sliding scale, I was on that original committee, and I remember us fighting so hard because of the football players. And I remember Joe Paterno on the floor. I remember what's the AD from Alabama, all of these big guys, all of these well-known athletic directors that were on the floor of the convention who wanted to recruit Black players and realized that they needed to do something in order to help them to be able to get into school and stay in school and stay eligible. And I served on that committee, served on the basketball committee, served on the track and field committee, but I had the experience of getting a chance to talk and interview and form a relationship with other athletic directors, women and men. And that was such a great opportunity for me, and it helped me to bring something back to our program that we didn't have. I didn't know we needed, and it just helped me to be able to be a better administrator during that time. So that was an experience that I treasure. FAMU gave me that experience. I was nominated by top-notch presidents and ADs from other universities, and I was able to represent the conference and represent Florida A&M at the same time. So that's one of my treasured experiences, and brought all of those things back to the university and was able to share that with the staff, not just the women's staff, but with the whole athletic program. And that was something I was doing, and no other male or female at the university was representing Florida A&M University at the NCAA level during that time.
Wow.
Sarah, how many male athletic directors did you work
under? Well, remember, I got out of there. So the whole, that whole period when I came in, of course, it was Coach Stooks, and then it was Roosevelt, and then Walter Smith came in, and then Townsend kind of like, I mean, that was enough at that point. And then Townsend, I was there when Sterling Adams, took over. And so after that, I realized that the program was going in the opposite direction that I had envisioned. I felt like at some point you have to realize that you brought it to a certain point. This is how I felt at the time. I brought it to a certain point from nothing to Division I. The girls, we had full scholarships in 8 sports at the time, and the girls were graduating at a high, like a 92 to 95% graduation rate. That was one of our goals. And even when young ladies came in, and very few did not graduate, a few we left, they transferred to other schools, but even those girls graduated from college because they came in under our foundation. Our foundation taught them they had to have respect for themselves. Of course, you can't reach them all, but I think we reached and was successful with so many. I mean, Pam Oliver is a result of our program, and our girls, when I talk to our girls right now, and I'm in touch with so many of them, their careers is amazing. Veronica Shavers right now is in charge of a entire trucking organization in Connecticut. She's a nominee for the Hall of Fame this year. I hope she gets in, but she was a volleyball player. But we have strong people like the Natalie Whites. We have strong people from our era from 1977 up to 1988. And we're proud of them. It just makes you feel so good. Claudette Farmer right there in town, the athletic director over at Ricketts High School, And so all of those people, and see, Claudette was on Mick's very first basketball team when we didn't have nothing, She came right out of Ricketts High School. And I used to call her the little Mickey, I tell her right now, the things she does and the things she knows came from, her dad, her high school coaches, from Mickey, all the way through. And that's what to me makes you feel really good about what you do, when the athletes and the people that you work with acknowledge you or make you feel like you were, what you did was worthwhile. And that's what Mickey, I appreciate this. This is wonderful.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. To see Vanessa Byers says, wow, this should at least be a 2-episode interview. And Sports Diva said, yes, it should be. what they don't know is what we got planned, Sarah, as we do our special that we have coming out on the history of women's athletics. And
That's right.
We're gonna go into a lot of this that you're hearing and now, and get some more commentary from some of the people who lived through that era. One of the things we want to do on the show is document history, put things out there. But we're gonna do a special show on that, Vanessa. So please know that we hear you, and Sarah has a whole lot more to say.
And let me just plug this. Mickey. Mickey and I talked about this. This is our dream. The women's athletics program at FAMU, even though we just celebrated the 50th year for Title IX, that's in the country. But the 50th year for Florida A&M University women's athletics will be 2027. And we're planning something special for that. And in my view and in my dream, every female, every male that had anything to do with women's athletics over the years from 1977 all the way up to today can take part in that. And that's what we're hoping for. That's what we are going to be building on. And we want to kick that off in 2027. And I'm hoping that all proceeds will go towards the women's sports programs. That's my dream. And at that time, Mickey's going to take the head on keeping me cranked up and whatever we need to do. We've talked to Francis Knight, who was the volleyball tennis coach. We've talked to Louis Boyd, who was a softball coach. I said George Ellis and some of the other people who came along during that time. And Herb Reinhardt, I can't say enough about Herb. Herb was my first and only sports information director because I didn't have a sports information director and I wanted to get my own, and I hired Herb. And Herb is now the athletic director at, Valdosta State?
Valdosta State.
For ever since he left FAMU. He's getting ready to retire. So those are the kind of people, Rick, that came out of our program that are now in careers and retired and went on to do such great things. So I'm very proud of that.
Wow. I remember Herb when I went through in 86. And Herb was around and it helped me out a lot. So wow. That sounds special.
Yeah, Herb took Mickey's program to a level that the men's program wasn't even experiencing during the time. And he just had a vision to, do those press. Remember the press guides? Mm-hmm. Do the press guides, highlight each girl. Mickey had these ideas of doing all of these different type styles of group pictures. It was amazing during that time. It was just amazing.
Vanessa Byers said to tell you thank you.
Thank you.
So you got comments. We got a lot of comments on this show from women who are tuning in and saying things. Now, you heard Sarah talk about her dream. Man, I don't know where I'm going to be when that time comes. But that's why I'm trying to make sure I document as much of it as I can now. And see, she's a natural in an interview. She tries to act all nervous and this and that. And all you do is turn the camera on and start rolling. Man, she goes on with it. And all she does is just tell you what's in her heart and talks about the things that she went through. Sports Diva clapped her hands for her. I mean, we have, it's just like we said, Sarah, so much, and there's so much information out there. And the one thing that I was adamant about was I wanted you to be an example to people who have themselves, have this vision to do this. And as we know, when we came along at Florida A&M, that it was a real nurturing time in terms of people trying to help you and prepare you.
Right.
I don't know that it exists the same now, but everywhere I go, I talk a lot about Claflin University, and they remind me of us during that time when people were working together and supportive of each other. I know that when we even played, the women's athletic teams played, everybody came and supported the game. All the women athletes would be at the court or on the volleyball field or basketball game. That everybody would be there supporting each other and raising hand, but all of them would be there to support each other.
Yes.
And
It was like a big family.
It really was.
Big
And
family.
it's kind of hard for some people to kind of understand all of what was going on during that time, but that support was really, really important. And even now, this week coming out tomorrow, with one of the shows we
Hello. Mickey, you there?
Or
Oh, Sarah.
I don't know what happened. I lost you there for a minute.
So, that's a preview of what we have coming, and we have some very highly ranked athletic department officials that have been watching the show from Claflin, some female associate athletic directors and assistant ADs that are watching, that wanted to hear your story, Sarah Hill. So see, look at she almost blushed, Rick. She almost blushed.
Thank you.
So we're really happy.
But Mickey, there's so many though. And I hate. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just want to. I just want to mention the fact that when I came through, Sadie McGee, remember Sadie McGee from Jackson State?
Mm-hmm.
Sadie McGee from Jackson State, Rick, was my mentor. And she was the basketball coach for years and years and years. Mickey and her became close. And it was just such a wonderful breath of fresh air for someone to meet you, never knew you, didn't know you, and took you under their wing and would call you and share information with you. And they tried to get her to be the person to represent Black schools, Black colleges in the NCAA. And she did it for 1 year. And she when I met her at the NCAA convention, she said, "This is my first year and this is my last year. You take it." She was not considered the women's athletic director at Jackson State at the time, but she was the first women's coach to be hired. And she wanted no parts of the convention life and tried to do legislation, and I loved it. And so it's kind of like she passed the torch to me, and I stayed with it the entire time I was at FAMU, and that was a great experience. Sandra Norell at Howard University was a really good colleague in helping me to do things, and she stayed around Howard University for over 50 years before she became the athletic director over the entire program. That's how long women sometimes have to stay in this fight in order to be recognized and get the credit that they deserve. I mean, 50 years, and she went through every athletic director that came through. And I saw her interview 21 athletic directors she went through in her 50 years before she got the job. So women out there who are aspiring to be be a athletic director over the entire program, do not give up your fight. Do not give up getting all of the credentials that you need in order to be able to have a resume that's impressive. Doesn't matter who you come up in competition with. I mean, look at Tiffany. The best resume sometimes doesn't always win, but it is your conversation and your conversation with whoever is interviewing you. You have to make sure you have all of those credentials as well as on paper.
Thank you for your words of wisdom. That's exactly what we wanted you to be able to share with the young ladies that we have that are watching. And even those, we have a lot of high school students and middle school students that watch. Male and female, we have a very, very good following. And again, it shows on our INSiiGHTS YouTube and on our INSiiGHTS Roku. It's on Roku right this minute, and will be on until we take it off. It'll be on Wednesday is our Mick and Rick Day, and we allow probably we probably have 12 or 15 issues that episodes that we run in and out on Wednesday. Thursday is our Claflin Day. We have all day Claflin. If you're not a Claflin fan, you probably don't want to watch it. But if you want to know about the university, the oldest HBCU in South Carolina, number three ranked in HBCUs, it will be Claflin University. We've had all their coaches, administrators, advancement team. They have a half-hour show, and we have every single interview with them up on Thursdays. So Thursday is our Claflin Day. So we appreciate that. And Miss Sarah E.J. Hill-Yates.
That's all right.
You are welcome at any time. And we already, you haven't left yet, and we're already getting requests for you to come back.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Rick, it was so nice meeting you as well.
It was an honor, man.
Watching the show, and I just feel thrilled and fortunate to have had this opportunity. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, Miss Hill. And again, at any time, we'll have you back. We'll kick somebody off the show for you to come on.
All right. That sounds good to me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Like us on Facebook.
I liked it on Facebook.
Follow us on Twitter. INSiiGHTS.
Yeah.
2 I's in the middle. INSiiGHTS.
All right, y'all.
All right, y'all. Y'all know what to do. Y'all saw what happened. Y'all saw that brilliant interview. Click wherever it is on your screen. Click it so you won't miss the next one.
So you won't miss the next one. I like that. Even Sports Diva hollered out, thank you. It was an excellent interview. And it's always amazing to me, people who act the most modest give the best interviews. The ones who say they're nervous and all. I knew once I got the microphone on EJ, she was going to roll with it. And it's so much that she didn't share. But we will have her back on again. It's so much she didn't share, but it's so much to say. And we are going to do a special on women's athletics and the origin and the history. That's exactly where we're leaning towards doing that. We appreciate y'all being here. You see how Rick has created all your backlogs in the back. And the Mick and Rick, wait till the Mick and Rick apparel come out.
Stay up to date with the latest from INSiiGHTS. Visit our website at INSiiGHTS.com. 2 I's in the middle. INSiiGHTS.com.
INSiiGHTS is a copyright of Mac4 Enterprises, Florida Corporation. This broadcast is produced under the exclusive ownership of Mac4 Enterprises. It is the intellectual property and trademark of Mac4 Enterprises. Comments of the host and other individual speakers on INSiiGHTS represent their independent thoughts and representation.
We appreciate you, everybody. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned for the Claflin Athletic Show, which will be released tomorrow, as INSiiGHTS honors and recognizes Women's History Month. Good night, everybody.
Peace. Yo.
See you later, Rick.